first, I tried talking to my dad, but he wasn't in the mood. Shut it right down. I pressed him a little on the flashing lights and he told me I should ask my Uncle Matt. So I did. Uncle Matt and my dad get along great. Never seen them fight in my life. But they're very different. Matt's easygoing, jokey, always has a kind word for everyone. That's why I was shocked when he actually got mad. He told me to never ask him about it again and to leave him alone. That would have been the end right there. But my bi-weekly phone call to my mom was due and I didn't really have anything else to talk to her about. So I told her what Dad told me, what I remembered, and what happened with Uncle Matt. "What the hell were you thinking?" she scolded, pretty typical of her. "He still feels it was his fault." The hushed way she said it, like someone might overhear, chilled me. I didn't even know what she was talking about. There were some odd things in my family that I kinda knew, but no one really talked about. This is the version of it my mom gave me. What Mom said. My dad and Uncle Matt had a younger sister named Flora. I never knew her as Aunt Flora, because she was gone before I was born. When Flora was 8 or 9, weird things started happening to her. My dad only talked about them when he'd been drinking gin, Mom said. Gin made him brood. She used to hide his gin, because it'd freak her out when he talked about these things. Like this one time my dad woke up because he heard noises in the kitchen. He came out to see what was up. Flora was making a peanut butter and sugar sandwich in the middle of the night. He asked her what she was doing, because if their mom caught them in the kitchen at that hour, they'd have their butts reddened. Flora told him she had to make a sandwich and a picture for Mr. Chaudfroy. Mom said Dad would shudder when he said that part of the story. His voice got real low when he'd say the name. So my dad got mad at Flora, because he thought she was being dumb or half dreaming. Then she showed him the picture she drew. It was a drawing of a boy sleeping with Matt written above it. My dad, being the oldest child, was very protective of Matt and Flora. He immediately felt something wrong was here. He took the picture and tore it up. And he told Flora she had to get back to bed right away. She told him Mr. Chaudfroy would be mad, because she promised him. Dad asked her who this person was and what he looked like, because he meant to tell their mom. She said she didn't know what he looked like, but he talked to her from the drain in the bathroom sink. He told her all sorts of things and she'd been talking to him every night for a month. At this point, my mom said she didn't want to talk about it anymore. It was giving her the willies. She didn't even like saying the name. Mom was always kinda superstitious about things. Like, she would be afraid to say the names of certain diseases. She'd never say, cancer, as if saying it causes it. She said just saying the name, Chaudfroy, made her feel like she was being watched. But I asked her more questions and she kept going. She said my dad didn't believe Flora. She must have been dreaming or just imagined the whole thing. He took the sandwich and ate it himself after sending Flora back to bed, so his mom wouldn't find it. He remembered the sandwich well because peanut butter and sugar was not something they ever made in the household. He had no idea where she'd heard of it. He forgot all about what happened for a few days or weeks. Until one night he woke up to pee and could hear funny noises as he got near the bathroom. The light wasn't on, but Flora was in there alone. He stopped outside the door to listen. She was whispering a whole conversation in there. He figured she was half asleep and didn't know what she was doing. He went into the bathroom to get her. Then he heard it himself. There really was a voice coming from the drain. Mom said he would get a distant look when he talked about this and just set the gin down, like he couldn't drink anymore, and my dad can always drink more. The voice he heard sounded cold and metallic. Probably from coming through the pipes, he figured, but it scared the crap out of him. What it was actually saying was even worse. Mom said he'd try to imitate the metallic voice, saying, "Come outside, Flora, come on outside, no one has to sleep out here." Flora whispered into the sink that she couldn't, because her brother might catch her. And the strange voice told her, he never should have eaten my sandwich. Hearing it made my dad's hairs stand on end. My mom said it's the most scared he'd ever been. Not one to freeze, my dad pulled Flora out of the bathroom and slammed the door. He warned her never to talk to Mr. Chaudfroy again, because he was bad. He ended up telling his mom, and they found where some pipes had been messed with under the house. They also found some drawings of my dad and Uncle Matt sleeping. They were all burned right away, and his mom forbade them to talk about it. They didn't handle scandals like that too well at the time. But my dad saw some of the drawings before they were burned. And they weren't drawn by Flora. I had never heard anything about any of this before. Dad and Uncle Matt almost never talked about Flora anyway, and when they did, it was always cryptic. I didn't know what this had to do with me, but my hand was shaking holding the phone. I thought she was done, but she said that was just the beginning. My mom usually gets tired of talking after 10 minutes or so. I was surprised. Maybe she needed to get it out of her system. She said that after that, Flora used to complain about flashing lights in her bedroom. Everyone just figured she was seeing the light from the lighthouse, because it was still active back then. She complained about it for nearly 2 years, saying she had trouble sleeping. Her mom got sick of it and put thicker curtains in her bedroom, and she kept complaining. They ended up getting her a sleeping mask. Problem solved. Not long after this, Dad, Matt and Flora went to a friend's house to hang out, because he had a record player and his parents would get him any records he wanted. They'd all just listen to music together. She left to go home before Dad and Matt did. But she never made it home. They never found her body. In theory, she could still be alive, but nobody really believes that. Mom thinks Dad and Uncle Matt always felt personally responsible for it, because if they'd just left with her, she might still be alive. My mom figures that's why the flashing lights thing upset Dad and Uncle Matt so much, and I guess I was opening old wounds by asking about it. At the same time, I find it really spooky that the same thing would happen to both me and Flora. And upsetting that it wasn't taken more seriously when it happened to me. I also felt really bad about hurting Uncle Matt. I visited him the next day to apologize. I told him my mom explained everything and I really had no idea. He wasn't mad anymore. Actually, he apologized to me, too, because he said I deserved to know. What Uncle Matt said. He said there was a little bit more to it than what my mom described. A week before she disappeared, Flora had started complaining about the flashing lights again. They figured either she was forgetting to put on her mask or it had been in her head the whole time. Then a day or two before she disappeared, he couldn't remember, she woke up and the mask was gone. She couldn't find it anywhere. They figured she just didn't want to wear it anymore. But now he wasn't so sure. Another weird thing, around the same time, was they found footprints in the snow outside the house. It had snowed almost 3 feet overnight. These footprints lead out of the woods behind the house and went straight to Flora's window. The thing Uncle Matt said creeped him out the most was that the footprints at the window didn't face into the window. They faced back toward the woods where there was nothing but trees. For the footprints to not have been covered in by snow, someone had to have walked to Flora's bedroom window sometime after midnight and stood there staring into the woods in a blizzard. Strangely, he said they never really worried about it much. Everyone knew everyone there. It just stands out in hindsight. The day she disappeared, they got a call from Timmy Jean, the boy with the records, telling them he just got a new one. Uncle Matt said Timmy was an only child. He thought the records were how Timmy's parents got him off their hands and made him some friends. So he was normally really excited when he got a record to share. This day he sounded flat, emotionless. Matt had to ask if he was even speaking to Timmy. And the whole time, Uncle Matt felt like someone was listening in. He could hear a sound in the background that wasn't quite breathing. It was like someone saying, "Yeah," really softly. Around this time, where my dad and Uncle Matt grew up, the phone lines were all what they called party lines. Each home's phone would have a different ring so they knew who should answer. But anyone could answer or listen in on anyone else's phone call. So having someone else on the line wasn't unheard of, just impolite.